Hello, my erstwhile followers, or if you are new to my now 38th video on Jonathan's Tales, a warm welcome. It's Tom Kissack, author of Jonathan's Tales, Volume 1, and that is a beautiful volume of 11 short stories, available on request from me by DM. Volume 2, available on Amazon, and Volume 3 awaiting release. The latter again will be on Amazon soon. Today I engage with you on part 2 of the continuing review of the 61 idioms, phrases, sayings, proverbs and facts enriching the rather hilarious 8th tale in Jonathan's Tale, Volume 2, entitled The Cactus in the Tree. A story, if you read, I am personally convinced you would adore its humour and metaphorical relevance in all our lives. In way of a recap, we left part 1 ending on on a note to review, note 12, to keep the lid on things or something, and also a saying that arose in my verbal narration, to whet one's appetite. I will, as to follow previous modus operandi, this latter Latin phrase was reviewed in my introductory video 3. I'll deal with these before delving into the next notations in the book. Let us first skirt over entitled Only the Business for Today. Keep the lid on something, to whet one's appetite. Tapping on a bit in age, to pitch up somewhere, someone's take on something, clear as mud, as dead as a dodo, and to steer clear of something. That's it. We will deal with all those in turn. The notation 12 contextually in reference to the book's storyline was read out in part 1. The book's end describes to keep the lid on something, a saying I do love, as to control something, to keep something becoming worse, or to prevent something becoming worse. Slide 5 considers 2 more examples of this delightful saying, and its historical origins perhaps are in a literal sense understandable. The phrase likely emerged in the late 19th to early 20th century, gaining popularity in English-speaking contexts. It may have been commonly used in relation to cooking, where a lid is used to manage heat or liquids. But in its metaphorical extension over time, keeping the lid on expanded beyond physical containment to apply to managing secrets, emotions, or social issues, emphasizing the act of restraint or control. And now, in its expanding cultural reference, the phrase appears in various contexts, including politics, relationships, and business, signifying the importance of maintaining order and preventing escalation of a situation. Slide 6 invites a review of the phrase to whet one's appetite. This means to increase your desire for something, usually by giving you a taste or a small experience of it. The word whet means to sharpen, so the phrase metaphorically means to sharpen your hunger or longing for something. Slide 7 provides 2 more examples of the saying, to whet one's appetite. Well, we might now revert to the book and notation 13, tapping on a bit, age-wise in this context. So as usual, I will read out the storyline pertaining to note 13 to understand this in live language. And I do love this conversation between Spike and Needles. The paragraph also introduces numerous other notations namely note 14, beyond one's ken, which we might pass as it was reviewed in the Parrot and the Woodpecker video 6. Note 15, to pitch up. We will review that. Note 16, deserts and seas, a fact we can pass by as it is not a saying as such. Note 17, crabs evolving into scorpions. Again, a factual reference we might pass by. The reader, if they have the book, can refer to the book's end to see explanations of the facts I have just mentioned. So, the storyline context. Spike fell about laughing. Scorpio's a silly old scorpion. He knows nothing. No, 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 my friend, said the other in earnest. He knows a lot. You do not know he's tapping on a bit. It's quite difficult to tell how much actually, as he's a bit wrinkly around his casing. Did you know, as a youngster, he went to a famous desert school and learned stacks of things quite beyond my ken? You wouldn't believe it, but so the story goes, some distant cousin, by all accounts a royal crab, pitched up actually on the day he was born. The royal crab laid down enough cash to ransom a king, solely for Scorpio's education. After Scorpio's outburst yesterday, we fell into conversation, and he told me a story about the trembling on the ground. Look, shrieked Spike in high agitation. It's trembling now. I can feel it myself. Both cacti involuntarily dropped their gaze to the ground, each wondering what was happening. Said Needles saucily. Well, to pick up on old Scorpio, he told me a story because he used to be a crab. Well, he himself wasn't, rather his ancestors used to be crabs, and they were living in the sea. Spike looked up at his friend and said, quite puzzled, well, how can he get to the desert from the sea? Because the desert was a sea at one time, replied Needles, a slight exasperation entering in his voice. Don't be silly, laughed his friend. Deserts can't be seas. Yes, they can. And Scorpio evolved from a crab into a scorpion in the desert. Well, not Scorpio himself, his family did. Mind you, it must have taken a lot of generations. So note 13, to be tapping on a bit, is explained at the book's end as being advanced in years. Slide 9 provides two excellent further examples of to be tapping on a bit, but I cannot resist adding a little on the phrase's historical origins. This phrase is an idiomatic expression that suggests a person or thing is becoming older or showing signs of aging. The phrase uses tapping on to imply touching the surface or approaching a certain state, while a bit in age indicates something is not new, but not necessarily decrepit. The imagery of tapping suggests a gentle approach to the idea of aging. The phrase conveys a sense of familiarity and acceptance regarding aging, often used in a light-hearted or affectionate manner to discuss older individuals or objects. Language often evolves, and phrases like this can emerge from colloquial speech, gradually becoming more widely recognized. That's fascinating, isn't it? As we are passing note 14, we may turn our attention to note 15, to pitch up in respect to location, which is explained at the book's end as to arrive at a place. Slide 11 furnishes two more scenarios to pitch up at a place. As we're passing by factual notes 16 and 17, this slide now invites us to examine the meaning of note 18 a take on something. We must firstly look at the context in the book storyline, and in so doing we pass some other gorgeous idioms. Note 19, as clear as mud. Note 20, to cross someone, which we can again pass by as it was reviewed in the Parrot and the Woodpecker video 3. Note 21, Cactus spitting spines. A delightful stop at an evolutionary oasis, but still again facts, so we can pass it by. And note 22, a beautiful phrase, as dead as a dodo. And finally, note 23, to steer clear of something. So, my friends, the book's context, which includes all these phrases, we are now to feast upon. Excuse me. So, what's your take on all this, Needles? Interjected Spike, quite unconvinced about the narrative his friend was spinning. Needles winked at his friend before relating additional comments from Scorpio, especially citing Scorpio's final words on the matter. Look up! Heads up! It's happening again! Spike, hearing what he judged as complete nonsense, pursed his lips and frowned, trying to hide his frustration that he thought this conversation was becoming as clear as mud. He said, "But what does he mean?" "Well, I've no idea. He's sometimes a bit strange, actually. I don't like to cross him because he's got a nasty sting in his tail, and he might want to sit..." "Well, you've got spines. You can spit at him," interrupted Spike irritably. "Yes, I've got spines. You know, we're one of the last cacti that can spit spines out if anyone attacks us. But he's got that poison in his tail, you know. And I don't like it. One of my uncles once was stung by a scorpion and he shriveled up. Ended up dry to his bones, dead as a dodo." Oh dear, murmured Spike. "That's not good. We best steer clear of the old stinger." Note 18, someone's take on something is explained as someone's perspective, opinion, or ideas about something. Slide 19 explores two other scenarios of to have a take on something. Slide 14 gives opportunity to look at note 19, to be as clear as mud, explained at the book's end as not at all easy to understand. And slide 15 teases out more illustrations of this interesting phrase, which prove for me irresistible not to delve further into its origins. The phrase clear as mud is an idiomatic expression that conveys the idea of something being very unclear or confusing. Despite its use of the word clear, the phrase pairs contradictory imagery, clear with mud, the latter which is inherently murky. This contradiction emphasizes confusion and lack of clarity, making it a vivid metaphor. The expression dates back to at least the early 20th century, often used in informal context to express frustration or bewilderment, especially when someone is trying to explain something that doesn't make sense. The imagery of mud being unclear resonates across cultures as it symbolizes obstruction and confusion, making the phrase relatable and effective in conveying dismay at the lack of clarity. Overall, clear as mud has become a popular way to humorously point out when things are anything but clear. I do love this phrase, laid bare. As we are passing note 20 and note 21, we can revert to note 22, as dead as a dodo, a phrase falling into colloquial English language referencing a bird, the dodo which is sadly extinct. So this phrase means completely dead or extinct, and can be extended to not just things that were living, but ideas, opinions, or in the slide here, cash, in the future. Slide 17 illustrates the phrase dead as a dodo in its figurative sense with two more examples. Now we can look at the last note in paragraph from the book we read, note 23, to steer clear of something. Explained at the book's end, to take care, to avoid, or keep away from something, like that aeroplane in the storm. Slide 19 gives two other clarifications to this phrase. I had intended to review just one more phrase, note 24 in the book, Talk of the Devil, which I adore, but reading the actual superb storyline, it is a must to take that next paragraph in its entirety rather than piecemeal. So I will stop and give due assertion that did not part 2 give us some super phrases drawn out of the 61 idioms enriching the beautiful story The Cactus and the Tree, and which we will resume in part 3 soon. By the way, we did pass 2 phrases in the verbal narration, which will be our first point of business next time. The phrase to lay something bare and to skirt over something. I am, I confess, a little excited revisiting The Cactus and the Tree at this point, knowing this quite amazing story is now developing to a crescendo of disaster for the main players, Spike, Needle and Scorpio. But it is, as I said before, that a little rain must fall in all our lives. And as again before, all my stories to Jonathan, I said many years ago, do end up, if not in happiness, in this particular case, a satisfactory conclusion to salve the anxieties of all concerned. So, until part 3, I wish you all keep happy, healthy and warm. If you're in the northern climes, I mean, especially as the old north wind is buffeting my beloved island in the North Sea, and Jack Frost has already made an appearance in my neck of the woods. A latter idiom reviewed in the Spiky Shell and the Star video 2. So for now I bid you all a warm goodbye.